Okay. So I started tap dancing when I was 6, and as my passion has evolved, so has my curiosity. And around a year ago, I really began to grow into myself and realize my own love for tap dance, and I felt the need to explore the roots of this form. I've experienced a lot of different classes where teachers have referenced tap history and the importance of knowing the dancers that have come before us. And I got to the point where I really wanted to know about the art that I enjoyed so much. So tap dance is more than the physical mechanics of steps. Being a tap dancer is rooted in respecting the tap dance form, which is shown most prevalently by respecting tap founders and innovators of the past, and I wanted to know why this was. Tap dance was created by enslaved peoples evolving over centuries to become what we know it as today. And respect in tap tradition urges us to remember the historical truth that tap dance is indeed a black dance form. In a 2017 interview with PBS, Michelle Dorrance, a world-renowned tap dancer today, points out that when the average person imagines tap dance, they think of Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly. When people find out that I'm a tap dancer, they tend to ask me to do a step and then reference the flamboyance of Gene Kelly or the elegance of Fred Astaire. These dancers, and white dancers in general, are remembered by the mainstream for creating tap dance, though this isn't the reality. What was really interesting for me to discover was that tap dance is truly an American art form, emerging in the 7th century during slavery. It all began with the African drum, and so the drum was a key aspect of culture for many West Africans who were enslaved in the Americas. Africans utilized the drum as a form of communication across plantations, and calls were used to send messages back and forth, including the planning of rebellions. After the Stono Rebellion in 1739, the South Carolina legislature passed what was called the Negro Act, which banned the use of drums. Once slave owners had realized the power of drums in the hands of the enslaved, they had attempted to disable their ability to fight back and to organize. After the drums were taken, the rhythms that were once kept in the drums were then transferred to the body, vocally as well as physically, clapping, body percussion, and the precursor to tap dancing, which is called patting juba. So progression towards tap dance occurred when this patting juba, which is normally done sitting or kneeling, and you run your hands over your body. It makes all of these intricate sounds. It's super cool. Was combined with an upright jig, which is dancing that's done standing and in this upper realm. And so this innovation will later lead to what the first form that's recognized as tap dancing. As dancing became integral to the lives of enslaved people, slave owners began to single out individuals with particular talent. Owners forced these skilled artists to compete with other enslaved dancers, betting on these kinds of competitions. This was the first time so-called tap dance became public entertainment for a white audience. The dancing was taken out of the black community as the enslaved peoples were forced to perform for their owners and associated guests. I see this as the earliest occurrence of the appropriation of tap dance. White slave owners took ownership of the talent of their so-called property and laid claim to the dance form innovated by enslaved Africans. As the 1700s came to a close, white people saw the popularity of this dance as an opportunity for their own individual success. And in the 1800s, minstrel shows rose into popularity among this white mainstream. The minstrel stage was dominated by white men who performed in blackface, mimicking the dancing done by enslaved peoples. Again, the form was being appropriated. And white people were taking credit for the art that they had stolen from their enslaved peoples. These white performers portrayed black people as they saw fit, turning them into all kinds of caricatures, including this one, which is Jim Crow. Enslaved peoples were depicted as joyful, saved from their own savagery by slavery. And for many years, only white performers were allowed on the minstrel stage. Black performers were hindered from the ability to take credit for the tap dance themselves. And with time, the association between tap dance and white dancers was established. And yet, one of the best minstrel performers during this time period was a black man. In 1825, William Henry Lane, also known as Master Juba, was born, and Lane was one of the first black dancers ever to perform on minstrel stage. He is historically recognized as the first tap dancer in the United States, performing this combination of patting juba and the upright jig. Lane was the star of the minstrel scene, touring the country as the only black dancer among an all-white cast. Given Lane's success, the rise of all-black minstrels troupes followed, and then in the 1870s, minstrel shows transferred to what is now called vaudeville. So a vaudeville show consisted of 10 to 15 unrelated acts, and these included crazy things like trained animals, jugglers, magicians, and of course there were dancers. Unlike minstrel shows, vaudeville had space for dancers of color, allowing black dancers to reach a height of recognition they had never achieved before. And yet, of course, there continued to be restrictions against them with what was called the two-colored rule. Gregory Hines, an acclaimed tap dancer from the 1990s, explained that the two-colored rule meant that there could be no solo black performers on stage. There had to be a minimum of 2 black dancers. And this rule upset and baffled me. While white performers were allowed to achieve solo dance careers, black performers were prevented from gaining fame and popularity and completely unable to take ownership for their own dancing. During this time period, one of the most popular duo teams was John Bubbles and Buck Washington, with the stage name Buck and Bubbles. And today we honor Bubbles as an innovator of highly intricate steps, raising the bar for the complexity of tap dance in general. Bubbles' steps were unmatched. And here's a video. Yeah, right? Absolutely. Okay, awesome. Many of vaudeville's most popular and innovative tap dancers are considered tap masters, unsurpassed even today, and among them is Bill Bojangles Robinson, who is often called the greatest tap dancer of all time. He shook the scene and disrupted the dynamics of vaudeville. He refused to wear blackface, and he refused to dance with a partner, and in general refused to be constrained by the rules set in place. In spite of the system, Bojangles reached a fame almost unimaginable for any black tap dancer at the time. He starred as the lead role in Storm and Weather in 1943 and performed in shows, nightclubs, and musicals. He was making around $6,600 a week for his films, an exorbitantly high rate for black artists at the time, and across his entire life made an estimate around $2 million. And so here is a video of him doing his famous stair dance. Just a part of it. Yeah. Completely. So Bojangles constantly performed free for benefits and donated a portion of his wealth to charities, especially during the Great Depression. And then in 1949, the mayor of Harlem, which is another title that he earned, passed away, and 500,000 of his admirers lined up for the funeral. Though Bojangles was an extremely successful individual, most black tap dancers at the time never reached such a high level of fame or earnings. And as Broadway and television rose in the 1930s to the 1950s, it brought devastation to black dancers. There was a drastic difference between who was performing on vaudeville stages versus Broadway stages and in movies. Dancers who were once kings of the vaudeville circuit had to exile their dance to Europe just to make a living. And in America, white dancers came to dominate tap dance. Through television, dancers like Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly became the face of tap dance, and the affiliation between black culture and tap dance diminished significantly. In a 1997 documentary called No Maps on My Taps, which I recommend everyone watch, it's amazing, tap master Sandman Sim describes this kind of connect. I've danced in front of kids in an audience who had never seen a tap dancer, never seen a black dancer dance where it relates to them. And so Sam and Sim illustrates how the new generation of young black children no longer have the knowledge and understanding that tap dance was indeed a form of their people. Oops. Sorry, guys. And there came to be a disconnect between black people and the form that they had created generations before. And since the 1950s, Broadway tap has come to define what tap dancing is known as today. And hoofing tap, which is rooted in the lineage of the original form, is little known to most Americans and resides mostly in the black community. Unfortunately, we have disconnected from the heart of tap dance, forgetting the very people who created this form. And so it's crucial for tap dancers today to know and therefore respect true tap dance history. Knowing the real history of the form and remembering the dance masters who were intentionally omitted from the common history is imperative for tap dancers. April Nieves, a member of the Boston-based tap company Subject Matter, said that as tap dancers, it is our responsibility to know who has come before us and who has struggled to allow us to dance as we do now. And as Gregory Hines put it, we are standing directly on their shoulders. Tap masters are the history of tap dance, and it is fundamental to respect them and to know them. I've come to learn that as a tap dancer, it is our responsibility to remember the names of masters who brought the form to where it is today. And each name is another innovator of the form. And each name has the possibility of getting completely forgotten if we don't hold on to it. So out of respect of these dancers, can we all say their names? I'm going to go first, and then you guys are going to go. So, William Henry Lane.
William Henry Lane.
John Bubbles.
John Bubbles.
Bill Bojangles Robinson.
Bill Bojangles Robinson.
And Sandman Sims.
Sandman Sims.
And so these are just 4 names among the many other innovators that there are that are unknown to the common mainstream. And so unlike codified forms like ballet and tap dance, tap dance history in its physical form is maintained within its people instead of in writing. Tap dance history is an oral history. Instead of books, we have tap masters who will tell and remember the past. And these tap masters are important because not only did they innovate the physical form of dance, but they actually also carry the history and the tap dance and the lineage of tap dance in the form of the stories that they tell. They hold both tap dance steps and history. And this form of oral history is very, very similar to the Western African historical storytellers, griots, who original cultures are of the enslaved peoples who were brought to the Americas. So oral history is an integral part of many West African cultures, including Mali, Senegal, and Guinea. So single people are tasked with being a historian for a family or for an entire village, and traditionally this person is called a griot. They are tasked with remembering the lineage of the tribe. There is nothing written down, and all of the information is collected and relayed verbally in the form of music and storytelling. What blew my mind is this is uncannily similar to the way that tap masters maintain tap history in stories and in dance. And so in this way, tap masters are tap dance griots, the holders of our history. During the slave trade, most of the people enslaved were taken from different West African countries where the root of the griot tradition lives. And in a twist of fate, their tradition of history keeping was brought to the United States and lives on in tap dance. The form of tap dance and the very way that it's preserved is actually not just a reaction to oppression, but is fundamental to the original culture of the enslaved people. Black people were pushed out of the mainstream white recorded history of tap dance, and yet, because of the form of griot tradition, their lives and histories are remembered and lives on. The fact that tap masters are tap dance griots gives a deeper understanding to why we must respect them, for they are literally the embodiment of our history. Though knowing history is foundational to a tap dancer's notion of respect, I felt there was even more. What does it look like to respect the form? Pulling from interview responses with tap dancers Ted Levy, Sarah Reich, April Nieves, and Adriana Ogle, I identified 5 different ways that tap dancers respect the form beyond knowing the tap dance masters. So the first one is to appreciate what you have. Be grateful for the space that you're in and for your shoes. Don't throw them around. I mean, you wouldn't throw around like a trumpet or a saxophone. It's the same kind of thing. To respect yourself. You are the vessel and your body is the instrument and the maker. So you have to take care of it and you have to listen to your body. To respect other tap dancers for their art. I think it's really important to respect all tap dancers because they are under the umbrella of tap dance, and generally everyone is moving the art forwards if you're dancing. To be an advocate for tap dance, to support other dancers, share their posts, go to their shows, bring your friends to their shows. And lastly, to remain humble. Being humble to the experiences that you've had as a tap dancer is to give yourself to the form, and it is to respect all the hardships tap dancers of the past have experienced, and to respect the accomplishments they've made. It is to leave space for the appreciation and love for the form. I'm extremely grateful to have done this project. It has really meant a lot to me. It's deepened my understanding of what it means to be a tap dancer and how I'm going to navigate that in the future. It's also meant a lot because I'm a quarter black, and before this year I hadn't really identified what that meant for myself. And I think that through tap dance, I found a window into how I'm going to proceed in that respect. So I still have so much to learn. This is only a little bit. There's a lot out there that I don't know, and I'm very excited to learn it. Thank you so much.